Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Meseches BECHOROS Daf Yud. We are holding on Talmud Bavli, 8 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabba. Now this connects back to yesterday. We had a machlokes regarding the status of a Peter Chamor, firstborn donkey, prior to the redemption process being applied. What's the status of that donkey? May one use it? According to Rabbi Yehuda, no. It is off limits. Asur b'hano. One may not have any benefit from it until he fulfilled his obligation, redeemed it, and gave the redemption to the kohen. Whereas according to Rabbi Shimon, there's no such isra. You can use it. You can have hana from it, even before you redeem it. But of course, you have an obligation to go ahead with the pidyon. But it doesn't mean that it's asur b'hana beforehand. Comes Rabbah and adds another layer to this discussion. Amar Rabbah. Umayde Rabbi Shimon, even Rabbi Shimon, who allows access to the donkey prior to redemption, he would agree. Suppose the owner opted out. He was provided 2 options. Either proceed with the pidyon petach hamor, redeem it for the yaseh, which is given to the kohen, or else arif, he must behead the donkey from the back, and that's the end of that. Says Reb Shimon, you should know that if he turned down the offer to redeem, rather he opted for arifa. Of course, if that arifa was done, the dead donkey is off limits completely. It's asur b'hano. Why? My time, gomar arifa megla rufa. He derives through Gzera Shava from a similar phenomenon, the calf, which is beheaded on account of that victim found on the road. And just like over there, explains Rashi, it is asur b'hano. Likewise over here. Amar Rabba, continues Rabba, mana minillah. That's a big chiddush that according to Reb Shimon, although it was permissible prior, but after arifa, it becomes asur. Mana minillah. How do I know that's true? The Sanya, you have a interesting brisa. The Sanya orla, all types of items which are forbidden. Ha'orla, right? The fruits of the first 3 years of the fruit tree, kerem, products of a cross plant in a vineyard, ushar haniskol, ushar that was condemned to death on account of killing somebody. Ve'egla rufa, right? V'tzipare mitzera, the birds that the mitzera use. Upeter chamar, okay, that rings a bell. Ubasar b'chalav, a mix between milk and meat. Kulan mitaman tumas oichlan. According to the Chachamim, although these items are also completely off limits, nevertheless, it is still labeled as a food material and is susceptible to the tumah, which applies itself to food. So if this item now touches something which is tamei, it receives tumah, as opposed to a non-food item which is not susceptible to tumah seichlan. These are, Rabbi Shimon disagrees. Aymer, he says, no, kulan ein metamen. These are things which are forbidden, useless. You can't eat it. You can't even sell it to a guy. You can't have any. No, kulan ein metamen tumas oichlin. There's no tumas oichlin. Now, umayde Reb Shimon agrees, makes exception for one, bebasar b'chalav. Why? So there he says shemitame tumas oichlin. Why? Hoil v'hoisel l'shas hakosher. Since there was a moment in time, there was a shas, a moment of kosher, that it was okay. So prior to this mix happening, prior to the cooking together, each ingredient on its own was permissible. So once it acquired food status, at that point, it retains that status despite being put in the pot with the basar and the chalav and becoming asr. V'amar Rabbi Yas, Amar Rabbi Yechon, my time to Rabbi Shimon. Why is it that Rabbi Shimon cancels the food labeling from something which is, removes that food status from something which is asr b'hano? The pasuk says, what constitutes food? Something which can be eaten, something which you could have hana from either yourself or by selling it to a guy. The pasuk says, this is the pasuk with respect to mas oichlin, food which could be eaten either yourself or offering it to a guy, which will gain you some goodwill, right? Which is also a form of benefit of anah. Only oichel, food shata yochel achil acher, which you could at least feed it to a goy, acher madagoyim, kari oichel, that has food status. However, oichel shiyata yochel achil acher, something which you can't even feed to a goy, such as these above mentioned items, which are also even bahana, einoi kari oichel, is not labeled as food. Continues the Gemara on the next page. Basar b'chalav. If that's the basis for removing the food label, Rabbi Shimon made an exception. He says basar b'chalav is different. Why? Because it was a moment in time that it had food status. Forget about that. Even now, currently speaking, according to Rabbi Shimon speaking, Rabbi Shimon holds, even a true basar b'chalav mix is a mutar b'hana. So for that reason alone, it should have food status. Regarding basar b'chalav, we should make exception for. Why bother speaking about that it had a moment in time in the past that it was eligible? Because currently, there's a better reason to consider it food. Because even now, it can be fed to a guy this side. So we hold that basar b'chalav is asur b'achila and b'hana. Shimon disagrees. Basar b'chalav asur b'achila, you don't eat it. But umutar b'hana, you could have hana. Shenema, the pasuk says, "Ge'am kadosh atel Hashem lekecha," and the pasuk continues relating to basar b'chalav. We make a connection between kadosh here and kadosh elsewhere, where it's limited to isra achila. You can have benefit from it. V'la'al nu'aymer. Elsewhere by the treifa it says, "V'anshei kodesh tiyun li." We make a connection. Malahal, just like over there by the treifa, it's limited to isra achila. You can have an from it. Malahalon asur b'achila, but it's still umutar b'hana. You can have anah. Afkan here as well. Basar b'chalav asur b'achila. You can't eat it, but umutar b'hana. You can have anah. So that itself is sufficient reason to give it food status. Why bother with the other? You're right. There are two reasons. Chadavayt k'amar. He's merely adding one reason on top of the other. Chada. Firstly, the basic reason, because presently you could have anah from it. You could feed it to a guy and have anah. But furthermore, the day nami, even the day for the Yisrael himself, who can't eat it now, but in the past he was able to. So this element relates to the Yisrael as well. Regarding the Yisrael himself, the way he relates to this material, there was a moment in time, so that's why it retains food status. Okay, so now we understand the Bryce. Bryce began with a long list of forbidden materials, which according to Reb Shimon, according to Rabbanan, is still considered food, despite the fact that they're forbidden. And the Matama Tumas Eichlin, according to Reb Shimon, correlates the two concepts. Tumas Eichlin is limited to something which is considered either edible or accessible regarding Hana, at least feed it to a guy. So by him, all these things are not Eichel regarding Tumas Eichlin, except for one item, which is Basar b'chalav. Now, why only one exception? There's another item on the list which apparently would have a din of Eichel. Pedar Chamar, which according to Reb Shimon is mutar b'hana. V'im said lacharif ashar Reb Shimon. Now, if it were so, unlike what I'm saying, says Rabbi, I'm suggesting according to Reb Shimon, Petach Hamar is also b'hana if tarifa. But if it would be incorrect, that it would be mutar shar Reb Shimon, so then that should be another exception to the list. Listening, the Brisa should present that u'moider Rabbi Shimon and Petach Hamar u'basar b'chalav. Not only is basar b'chalav considered accessible and hence considered food, likewise Petach Hamar shemitam tumas eichlin, that's open to tumas eichlin. So seemingly it proves my point that even if Shimon agrees that Petach Hamar after Arifa is off limits. Well, no, not so quick. Truly, if he would have had intention, machshava, had he designated it for food, yeah, of course. Achanami, it would be considered food. He designated, to feed it to a guy. We're speaking that he didn't have machshava to eat it. He didn't label it as food in his mind, so therefore, its default state is non-food. It's a dead donkey, which, is not typically considered food. Even goyim refrain from, we'll see later, from dead non-kosher animals, horses, donkeys. So, again, perhaps, no, petach hamor is mutar bahana. It's just that, unless he planned on treating it as food, either for himself or for a guy, it's not considered food. So, now the question is, in the reverse, why do Rabbanon yet consider it food? If he didn't have machshava, why do Rabbanon consider it food if he had no machshava to eat it? Amru Rabbanon kamed Rav Sheshes, the Chacham presented Rav Sheshes an interesting theory, interesting concept. Hoil v'yisurei chishuvai. They held like this. Sometimes its Isser status can compensate for machshava. Rashi says like this, interesting Rashi. About 8-9 lines from the top. Isur chishuva, Isur de asar l'rachmana l'Yisrael mishavi le'ochel. The fact that the Torah considers it asar for us to eat, that in itself elevates its status. It gives it prominence, negative attention. The kibun de asar. The fact that Torah has to go and make it asar machlal d'roi la'achil l'gechavu. Apparently, it's considered edible for a guy. You don't eat it. The guy could eat it. So the fact that it becomes asr for us has a reverse effect. It's considered food regarding a guy. And without explicit designation. Ask the Gemara, Rabbanan Yamrin, he comes a whole long string of kashas on this concept. According to Rabbanan, the Isser can act in lieu of designation. But now we have a mission, Shleisha Sadvarim, Nemru benivlas iftar. There are 13 halachis regarding the dead kosher bird, v'achzmen. And this is one of them, tzricha machshava. You have to label it as food. You have to have machshava, to feed it to a guy. V'ena tzricha hechsher. It doesn't have to get wet in order to become tamei. Rashi explains because it has the potential to generate a very severe tumah. When one swallows it, it becomes tamei. Its clothing does. So when something has a power to generate severe tumah, it doesn't need hechsher. It's considered like a finished product. Okay, but back to that first halacha. Why does it need to be labeled as food? V'isur chishuva. If the isur by itself acts as a designator, lamali machshava, why you have to explicitly label it as food? Hamani Rab Shimon, no, it's going like Rab Shimon, who doesn't hold that concept. Toshmai comes another kash. You have a dead, non-kosher animal, like a dead horse, a dead donkey, wherever you are, in the town or the cities. Where Rashi says, Stoma lav lachila kaimat me'isa, very interesting. Even for the goyim, they keep away from these dead, non-kosher animals. Another reason Rashi says it has two strikes against it. First of all, it was never shecht, and first of all, it's a behemoth tmeah. So these are not considered food unless he explicitly designates it as such. Another example, v'nivlas iftar, a dead kosher bird, which isn't as bad, v'achelav, or fats of a dead kosher animal, b'kfarim. So if you're in the villages where, in the cities people eat this stuff, but in the villages they're not accustomed to eating these fatty things. They're poor people. This is not really considered their standard fare, so it's not automatically regarded as food unless you plan it as such. Tricha machshava, you need machshava, but you don't need hechsher because again these are generators of tumah. Okay, now let's go back. If isser act as a designator, why bother with machshava? These things are asr. Once again, Rab Shimon speaking. Rab Shimon, who doesn't hold at this point. Tashmai comes another kash. A dead kosher animal, wherever you're living, in the big cities or in the small villages, which Rashi says is presumed to be for eating purposes. A guy has no problem eating this because it's just a kosher animal that died. It's not a non-kosher animal. Very interesting. We see the kosher, non-kosher designation affects even the way the goyim relate to food. Very interesting. So nivel b'leim b'tor b'chol makom. We nivelas ev tahator b'chela b'shvakim on the big cities and the big markets. So the dead kosher bird or the fats of a dead kosher animal. These things are considered edible fare, standard items on the menu for goyim. So you don't have to label it as food. But the no doesn't need hechsha for the reason we mentioned before. Let's make an inference, a di'ik hotmei b'machshava. Apparently, if it's a kosher, a non-kosher species that died, it needs machshava to be considered oichel. Why? The very fact that it's aser should be considered a designator. Should elevate its status and give it food status. Perhaps you can propose. Once again, this is Reb Shimon speaking. Who doesn't hold of this concept? Mani Reb Shimoni. You can't say that. Hamad Sefer Reb Shimon Havi Reish Lav Reb Shimon Havi, because since the next part of this halacha is Reb Shimon speaking, apparently the first part is not Reb Shimon. Tani Sefer. Halacha continues. Reb Shimon Omer Af HaGamal. Oh, here's that list of partially kosher, the creatures that exhibit some kosher signs, one of the two kosher signs, so it's sort of in limbo, it's somewhere in between the kosher group and the non-kosher group, somewhere in the middle. The camel, arneves, the rabbit, the shafan, the erev, the chazir, the swine. So in this case, you're actually dealing with a higher quality item because it has some, partial kosher properties to it. So you don't have to actually have machshava to make it food, and nor does it need hechsher because it has that inherent tumah. Right? Von Reb Shimon matam. Oh, said Reb Shimon, let me explain to you why these things are unique. So unlike a truly non-kosher breed, which needs to be designated as food, to be considered food, these are automatically considered food. You know why? Since they have partial, simani tara. Either it chews its cud or it has split hooves. So once we find Reb Shimon in the Sefer, apparently the Reish is not Reb Shimon. Okay, what does the Reish say? That you have to have machshava on something which is even asur, and the question was isurei chishuvai. The isur status should automatically give it food status. Ella Maravi, you're right. We're going to negate this whole theory. The kul yamalei amrina isurei chishuvai. Isurei chishuvai is not something which you're going to go with. Nobody holds of it. Okay, so now back to the brisa there, which describes the Peter Chamer, something which is, according to Rabbanan, considered food, according to Reb Shimon, not considered food. Evidently, he had no machshava to make it food. That's why it's not considered mitamat mas'oichel. And then the question is, why, according to Rabbanan, is it considered mitamat mas'oichel if it had no food labeling to it? Nobody designated it as such. You're right. If he actually did the arifa, he beheaded it, and he did not label it as food. He had no intention of feeding it to a goy. You're right. Even the Rabbanan would not grant it food status. Not to talk about. We turn Talmud base. So why is it considered food? Not my skin on. We're speaking about something that happened to it, which is arbitrary, which you can, interpret both ways. So if he would have actually shechted it outright properly, so that gives it food status, as we learned back on Daf Kuf Yud Zayin. If you do a proper shechita with the intention to, feed it. But here, he was just practicing on it. Right? So he was just practicing on this donkey. The question is, after all, it was a proper shechita halachically, but it wasn't what he was trying to do. He wasn't trying to make it edible. He wasn't trying to shecht it to make it edible. He was just playing around, just practicing. The question is, what status does that shechita have? Does it elevate it to food status or not? And we find a pre-existing machlokes on this matter already, which will also be the point of machlokes between Rabbanan, Reb Shimon, and our brisa. Okay? We plugged the nimus. So he was a Tana, machlokes between him and Rabbi Eliezer. Or Lazar. The Sani, as we find, Rabbi Yisir basically tells us, Sachli, Nimus, once related to me. Who was Nimus? He was actually the brother Achiv Shel Rabbi Yeshua Hagarsi. Okay, your brother Rishah Garsi. Some say Garsi is just the name of his place. Some say he was a bean grinder. So what did he tell me? A similar case, except instead of a donkey, he was speaking about a non-kosher bird, a raven. He shechted it just to get some practice. Now, typically, dam which emerges from a shechita has the ability to be machshir. So that blood falls on fruit. It opens the door for the tumah to affect that fruit. It's called hechsher. It has to be blood coming out of a shechita, dam chalalim. So even this sort of semi-official shechita, which is just Islamic, that blood is considered blood of shechita and is machshir fruit. Rabbi Lezer says, yeah, dam shechita always works. Isn't he merely echoing Tanakama's words? What's the machlekes about? Rabbi Lezer and Tanakama, they're both saying the same thing. Allah, it must be that, yeah, they all agree that the blood has the ability to be machshir because it's coming from a shechita, but the question is regarding the status of this raven, of this bird, which is a non-kosher bird. Now, had it experienced a proper shechita, it would be elevated to food status. But here it was a semi-formal shechita. It was Islamic. That's the point of machlekes. Rashi explains the shechita, in addition to the fact that it is asur, that itself should give it food status, right? That's the point of contention here. Tanakama holds. Sure, the blood of this shechita is considered blood which can be machshir, other food, and open the door to tumah, but to consider this very bird, to elevate it and give it food status, no way. Only a proper shechita can do that. Only true designation, but this practice run doesn't cut it. Regarding its own status of this bird, you have to consciously designate it as food. He disagrees. He says even this type of a shechita can do the trick. Dam shechita leila machshir, you don't have to actually go out of your way and designate it as food. The fact is that it did experience a halachically sanctioned shechita. It is elevated to food status. Perhaps together with the svara of Yisur Chishuvah, as it sounds from Rashi. Okay, in any case, that machlekes will link to our machlekes as well regarding the practice shechita done on this peter chamor. According to Chachamim, that in itself gives it food status. Reb Shimon disagrees. Says the Gemara, how do you know to connect it to discussions? There's room to differentiate. Dilma, perhaps. Time Reb Lezer Hassam, the Shani Orev. Perhaps the reason why Reb Lezer considers that non-kosher bird as food, that's because it's an Orev who exhibits some kosher signs. He's not fully kosher, but he's partially kosher. And as we said before, that can do something. Likewise, over here, will be given food status. So as the Gemara, how do you even know the Simone Tara Milsi? That's something which is technically not kosher, but just because it has some partial Simone Tara, that gives it status. The Tani Dahi. You recall, a minute ago we had Reb Shimon explaining on that brisa there. Reb Shimon Matam, right, the camel, those partially kosher things. Matam, why they consider food even without explicit designation. Hoil v'yesh boy or behen simone tahara. So partial kosher signs can do the trick. Well, says the Gemara, so is that the reason why if you shechted this raven, this lamed, Reb Lezer considers it food? Because it's a raven which has some simone tara. So then why bother speaking about a halachically sanctioned shechita, even without that, even if it would die, by the very fact that it in itself, this bird in itself, is partially kosher, should give it food status. Perhaps you can respond and argue, if the reason is based on simone tara, forget about the fact that he shechted it l'islam. I feel this asak nam, even if he just was playfully handling a knife and somehow this bird flew by and it got shechted, it was just, this asik wasn't intended at all. He was preoccupied with something else. That certainly doesn't have shechita status. Who cares? But the bird itself, by virtue of its own status, should have food status. And echanami mishum nimus, you're right. It would, even without a proper shechita, but the point was to mention li Islamid, and still Nimus disagrees, to highlight Nimus' opposition, that even in the case where it was a sort of a semi-intentional shechita, you would think, Nimus says no, that doesn't matter, it's not a factor at play, it's not going to help him very much, and it's not going to be considered food. Now let's go back to that original discussion. Rabbah had a big chidush, even Reb Shimon, who allows access to the Petach HaMara pre-redemption, but once he opted for Arifa, it's a goner. So now Abaye has another kasha on Rabbah. We have the halacha which says the owner refuses to redeem his firstborn donkey. Gone. Takes a big knife, slashes it from behind, buries it, and you can't have access to it. Reb Shimon Mater. Shimon clearly says you can have a no even from the beheaded donkey. Okay, it's a clear-cut raya, not like Rabbah. Ema will revise the Bryce. Bryce is talking about while the donkey is still alive. Rabbi says it's off limits, as per his opinion. And Reb Shimon says it's okay, but after Arifa, all would agree, perhaps it's us. How could you say we're talking while it's still alive? But in the Sefer Mechaim, the fact that the second part B of the Bryce is talking while it's alive, we assume that the first part of the Bryce is not talking about the same exact stage of life, but speaking after death. Tony Sefer, part B of the Bryce says, you can't kill it in any other manner except for the way it was prescribed to be done. You can't kill it with a reed, with a sickle, with an actual megir, with a saw, nor you put it into a room and starve it, there's the fun of, lock him up, that he dies. There's a very specific way of doing it. The Brisa continues, you can't share it, you can't work with it. Reb Shimon Mater says you can use the donkey. Apparently we're speaking that he's still alive, right? That's what we're talking about. Using him and how to kill him, right? Says the Gemara, Reisha v'Sefer Machayim. You're right. Part A and Part B are both speaking while the animal's alive. We're not talking about after it was Arifa. So why? Do we have to repeat the same halacha and discuss, whether or not you can use it? If we both are talking while it's alive, it's a repetition. Says the word, it's not a repetition. Each part of the Bryce is addressing a different aspect of Hanoah. Reisha b'Sefer Machayim, part A and B are speaking while it's alive. Reisha b'Hanos Damav. Part A is speaking about having Hanos Damav, from its value, selling it, etc. Sefer b'Hanos Gufay. Second part is talking about whether you can access it for its own benefit. You can share it, work with it, tzricha. And both elements, have a lesson to it, and both are needed. How? Had we only discussed whether or not you can benefit financially from the Petach HaMara during its lifetime, I would say, Bahud Koshari Reb Shimon. Perhaps only in the case Reb Shimon says you could, because it's not direct hanoah from the actual animal, Avanos Kufa, but regarding having direct hanoah physically from the actual donkey, perhaps he would agree to Rabbi Yehuda that it's asur. That's why we need to learn otherwise. On the other end, if we only discuss a second case where it's direct hanoah from the actual donkey, perhaps speculate. Yeah, the actual Rabbi Yehuda says you can't. You can't have direct hanoah from the donkey, but if it's just indirect value hanoah, selling it and renting it, perhaps you would agree to Rabbi Shimon that it's okay, tzricha. Therefore, we have part A, part B, whether it's direct or indirect hanoah. We have the same machlekes. Rabbi says asur, Rabbi Shimon says mutar. But again, we're speaking during its lifetime. We have no, which has no bearing on our chidush of Rabbah that all agree l'achar arifa is asur. That's not being discussed in this price. V'chein amar Rav Nachman, amar Rabbah, baravu. So like Rabbah, so says Rav Nachman, that Moed Rab Shimon, Lach Arifa Shu Aser, after beheading, the Et Bet HaChamar is Aser, even according to Rab Shimon. Rav Nachman, how do I know this? The Sanya, we have a Braisa, Va'araftoi, which is done to the Bet HaChamar. Nemar Kan Arifa, V'nemar Lahal Arifa. We have Arifa over here, we have Arifa over there by the Egla Rufa, just like over there it's Aser permanently, Malahal Aser, Kan Aser, here it's Aser as well, and it must be Rav Shimon speaking. Why? Mani, who's speaking? Ilim Rabbi is speaking. Mechayim Meser Aser. Forget about after Arifa being Aser. It's already Aser during its lifetime. Ella Rab Shimoni, must be Rab Shimon, who allows use prior to Arifa, but after Arifa even agrees it's off limits. Amal Rav Sheish, the Sheish responds, he says, no, Safra, referring to Rav Safra, Charach, your colleague, Tirgumo, he explained the halacha, the Brisa differently. Lo Rab Yehuda. It's not going to Rab Shimon. It's going to Rabbi Yehuda. That the Bet HaChamar is Aser Bahana even during its lifetime. It's already Aser from then. Why bother speaking La'achar Mi? But there's a point to mention here. Perhaps I can say, Arifa, the beheading process of Mokim P'tiyah Medes, is in lieu, is a substitute for the swapping with the Seh. You have two options. You can swap it with a Seh or do Arifa. But perhaps they both have the same result. Ma P'tiyah Materis, just like the redemption process now allows access to the donkey. Afarifa Materis, perhaps Arifa has the same effect. Kamash Malan, that's what the Brisa has to teach otherwise. But again, it's only going to Rabbi Yehuda, but perhaps according to Rabbi Shimon, it's mutar mechayim, it's mutar even now. Amar Rav Nachman, Naminillah. Continues Rav Nachman with another proof. How do I know that according to Rabbi Shimon, even according to Rabbi Shimon, it's Asr after Arifa? V'tani Levi explains, look, the owner was trying to get away. Who Yifsid Ramon Shal Kohen? He was depriving the Kohen of his rightful gift of the Yiseh. He failed to take the redemption option. Lefichach Yifsid Ramon, he's going to lose his possession. So who's speaking? Is it Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Shimon? Mani, Ilin Rabbi Yehuda is Rabbi Yehuda speaking on Mifsid V'Koy. He's going to lose. He's already lost it. He doesn't have access to the donkey. Ella Rabbi Shimoni. The Brisa must be Rabbi Shimon speaking, who agrees that after Arifa, it's a gone deal. Ibo Yisima. Says the more no. Ibo Yisima Rabbi Yehuda, Ibo Yisima Rabbi Shimon. Not necessarily so. Because the Brisa can be going like Rabbi Yehuda, or according to Rabbi Shimon as follows. Ibo Yisima Rabbi Yehuda. Perhaps we're going like Rabbi Yehuda. What does the Brisa mean? He lost it? I've said that the Beini Beini, the in-between value, meaning the fact is, he could have gotten away with just a cheap seh worth Trei Zuzi, and now he lost his whole donkey. That's what it means. So sure, during its lifetime it's off limits, but after Arifa, pretty bad deal. He could have just made a quick redemption and gotten away with just $2 instead of losing the entire donkey worth 1,000. Boy, same Reb Shimon, or we're going to Reb Shimon the Pras Misa. All that was mutar b'hana b'chayim, and even after Misa, but the fact is, it went down in value by virtue of its death experience. It went from $1,000, now it's worth $10. That's what it means. However, Rish Lakish also went with Rabbah and Rav Nachman's opinion that Moed Reb Shimon, Lach Arifa, Shu Aser, even Reb Shimon agrees, after Arifa it's Aser, becomes forbidden. Rabbi Yochanan, however, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lezer, they disagree. Amar Adayni Machlekes. Still subject to dispute. So according to them, just like Meichaim, we have a Machlekes, Rabbi Yehuda says Aser, Rabbi Shimon says Mutal, likewise Lachar Arifa. V'iko de Masnal Hadar of Nachman Aha. Now, some had a different version. The Rav Nachman, his assertion that even according to Rabbi Shimon, after Arifa, the donkey is also b'hana, it related to a Mishnah. Aha. Mishnah Maseches Kedushin. Hamakadesh Petach Hamar. So he offers his wife to be a Petach Hamar as a Kedushin. Einam Kodeshes. Why? Because it's Asr. You have no benefit, has no value. So now the question was posed, Leima Masis like Rabbi Shimon, perhaps this Mishnah that gives it no value is not consistent with Rabbi Shimon because according to him it has value. You can use it. On that we have Amar of Nachman, Amar Rabba Ravua. No, Lachar Arifa was speaking after death. Even according to Rabbi Shimon, it's Asr B'hana. Ikadamri. Some had a different version. Hamani Loi Rabbi Rabbi Shimon. That this Mishnah, which doesn't allow you to do an effective kiddushin with a petach hamar, is not going Either it could be the or Reb Shimon. Why? Reb Shimon, according to Reb Shimon, what's the issue? You can use the pater chamor before any redemption to Kaddish Bekulai. The woman who accepted it, she accepted something of value. So she become mikudeshes as per the full value of the donkey. Or according to Rabbi Yehuda, to Kaddish B'achta Beni Beni. True, the chamor is asher b'hana mechai, but remember, there's a differential there, a value differential between the actual value of the chamor and the seh, which is only $2. So she has value in this chamor, and that she can just make a quick redemption and gain $98. So what's the issue? Amar Rabba, Baravo, Amar Rav, Leil Rabbi Yehuda. Certainly it's going like Rabbi Yehuda. Why doesn't it have value? Despite the fact that you could redeem it. Yeah, but this whole donkey here is a very valueless donkey. We're talking about a very cheap donkey. Low value item, only worth a shekel. And we're going like the opinion that the redemption has to be done with a set, which is worth at least a shekel. So she has no money in this. It's going to be a shekel for a shekel. They're going like that sheet of the Sanya. Tifta. It says the word tifta, redeem, twice regarding Petach Hamar. We learned tifta miyad. You can redeem it immediately upon birth. You don't have to wait 30 days like by a person. Tifta kolshu. You can redeem it with an animal worth even a penny. There's no minimum value requirement. However, basically the Aimer, even if you use a goat, it has to be worth at least a shekel to make an effective redemption. We'll see later the reason for that. And since the donkey is worth no more than a shekel, so you're getting a shekel for a shekel, she has no money in it, and therefore it's not Mekudeshes. Okay, let's continue another little bit here. Let's go back to the Drasha we just learned. Tifta teaches us like this. Tifta miyad. You can do the redemption on the donkey immediately after birth. Tifta kolshu, the animal being used in redemption could be worth just nothing, just, anything. Says the Gemara Pshita. Well, why would I not be allowed to do that? I mean, why do we need a pasuk that you can do it on day one of birth? You can use even a cheap redemption. Pshita says the Gemara Isrich. There's a point to mention this. Why? So perhaps I would say since in the same pasuk we have a mentioning of the firstborn donkey being redeemed and the firstborn male. Perhaps we can correlate the two. Just like by a human, you have to wait until 30 days are up. And also v'chamish, you must redeem with 5 coins, 5 sela, right? As the pasuk says, right? Perhaps the same rules apply to a petach hamor. Hanami achar shleishim v'chamish has to wait 30 days and 5 sela. Kamashmon tifta miyad tifta kolshu. Comes a pasuk and says no, even right away, even using an animal worth very little. However, the animal used for petach hamor needs to be worth at least a shekel. And the question is why? Where's he coming from? What's the basis for his shekel minimum? If he's connecting to the B'chor Adam, you need 5 sela. Like the B'chor Adam, if he's not going to correlate it to the B'chor Adam shekel, how does he get to the shekel? Certainly it's not because he's connecting it to the B'chor Adam. The pasuk says, which is by Erechan, where you donate a person's value. And we learn from there, that relates to our redemption process, this evaluation, this assessment, this redemption has to be no less than a shekel. Rabbanan say no. Return to the next page. That's not speaking about petach hamor. It's speaking about a fellow who pledged to give a person's value, and the fellow can't afford it. So we go and we examine his financial state and obligate him accordingly. But at a minimum, he has to give a shekel, no less. That's the point of the other pasuk. Even when he's compelled to give, less because of his financial standing, but no less than a shekel. Amar of Nachman. Okay, bottom line. What's the end of the day? What do we do with the petach hamor? How much does the seh have to be worth? Amar of Nachman. Allah kedibra chachamim. We go like the chachamim. The seh can be worth even a kosher. V'kama. The more continues. But okay, how much should it be worth? Amar of Yosef. Afilu patruza. Even a weak, low value goat. Bar danka, worth just a danka, which is a ma'ah, which is very little. Amar Rava. Af anana mitanina. We find the same in our Mishnah. There's no minimum value. Gadol v'katan, it could be big, it could be small. Says the Gemara. Well, Pshita, I mean, why do we need to go through this whole thing and prove it from the Mishnah? I mean, go back to the wording of the Chacham. They said a kosher. Kosher means a kosher. Why would I think otherwise? Well, the Tema, perhaps I would think, kosher, even a kosher has a limit. But this weakling, goat that's worth very little, perhaps that's going a bit too far. And the answer is it's okay. Inami. So perhaps if it's worth so little, it doesn't cut it. Inami or patruzaloi, because it's weak in state. Maybe it's a strike against it. Kamashmon, that's what we need to highlight, that even a weak-looking goat, and even if it's worth just a danka, it works. We had a story, Rabbi Nasiya. So in his household, there was a firstborn donkey. Havale petachamar. Okay, Shadil came to Rabbi Tarfon. He sent to Rabbi Tarfon with a question. How much am I required to give the coin? How much should the goat be worth? Amalei says, listen to this formula. Re'omer Chacham established as follows: Ein Yof, a generous fellow, b'sela should be worth a sela. Ein Ra, a stingy fellow, b'shekel should be worth a shekel. A sela is 4 dinar, a shekel is 2. And Beinonis, the average person, baragya is 3 dinar. Okay, so here you go. Pick your choice. Amar Rava Hilchas of baragya. At the end of the day, the halacha is you should use the ragya, which is worth 3 dinar. B'kama, how much that's lost? 3 zuzi, which is 3 dinar. Because that's a golden compromise. It's somewhere between the shekel and the selah. Ragel hachav, close to this, close to that, somewhere in between. Now, what's going on? We seem to have an open contradiction. Here we're saying it should be worth a ragya, which is 3 zuz. And a minute ago we said the halacha is even a patruza bar danka, worth very little. So we seem to have a contradiction between the two halachas. Well, the answer is, did you ask or are you just doing it? You're doing it on your own. You didn't ask, you did it, fine, done is done. But if you're coming to ask, give the kohen something of value, something respectful, it should be worth at least 3 zuz. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. BECHOROS. Is the petach mar mutar bahana? Contra Buda, Asr, contra Shimon Mutter. What about after Arifa? We chose to take the Arifa option. Well, according to Rabbi, according to Rav Nachman, right? According to some Shittas, even Rav Shimon would agree. At this point, it's Asr Bahano, whereas Rav Yechon and Rav Elazar hold no. Even after Arifa, Rav Shimon would maintain that it's Mutter Bahano. Let's draw us into a whole discussion with a brisa, with another brisa, all kinds of kashas and rice. We had an interesting concept called Yisurei Chishuv, which is more negated. We had an interesting question of Shachtel Islamid, whether it considers it food. We had ways to explain the Mishnah regarding Kiddushin, why it doesn't work with Petach Hamor. And we had the conclusion regarding the value of this, how much it have to be worth. In order to be considered an effective pidyon, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it has to be worth in the shekel. According to Rabbanan, halachically speaking, even just a kolshu. But if you come to ask, we advise you to be a bit more generous. Okay, a bit generous with the kohen. Hashem will be generous with you, my Baba. Allah Shalom. Allah Shalom. One of her last words to me was, she was nifta about a year ago. She says, "After Eibishter, Adias tin chesed mit the andere, at the Eibishter tin chesed mit. If you do chesed with others, don't worry, Hashem will do chesed with you." Amen. All the best to you and Atzlacha.